our panel discussion. My name is Ellen Bibbard. I'm the Assistant Director of the Upward Bound program.
I'm Kayla. I'm a Human Development major, and I'm an intern with Upward Bound this semester.
Kayla and I are going to be facilitating today, and just on behalf of the entire Upward Bound team, we thank you all for joining us and joining in the celebration. Before we get started, I just want to say at the conclusion of the event, any of the Upward Bound students in the room, we're going to have you guys hang back and on the Zoom for just a minute or two because we have a couple updates. But with that said, we'll kind of go ahead and get started. I will hand it over to Kayla to start introducing our panelists.
So we're going to start by having each panelist just introduce himself briefly by saying their name, where they went to college and what their major was, their current position, and a brief favorite memory from college. So if whoever wants to start first.
I'll go first. My name is Joshua Frederick. I am an EOP counselor at SUNY Broome Community College. I am an Upward Bound alum from Binghamton University, and I attended SUNY Cortland with the great help of the Upward Bound program. And my major was sport management. And I guess I'll have to say that my favorite college moment was graduating.
I can go next, I guess. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Dr. Ada Robinson Perez. I graduated from undergraduate school, Marist College via HEOP, and did my graduate work at Syracuse University and my doctoral work here at Binghamton University in the CCPA Community and Research Action Program. I'm sorry, I forgot the question. What, major? Okay. Major social work, both undergraduate and graduate, doctoral program, community research and action with an emphasis and concentration in social work and public administration. I am currently the new affirmative action officer here at Binghamton University in the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I also adjunct with the social work department as well. And one of my favorite memories in college, I had an opportunity to meet Gwendolyn Brooks, who's a poet, and hear Spike Lee speak at Siena College during my undergraduate years, and that was kind of cool. So I like experiences in terms of meeting people that I can actually, I read about or see their art, their artistry, so.
Yes, I guess I will go. I'm Dr. Ann Meriwether. My undergraduate major was psychology, and I got all my degrees actually from Penn State. I got my BA, my master's, and my PhD in developmental psychology at Penn State. And I've been here at Binghamton, I think it's 18 years now, as an instructor in the psychology department. And brief favorite memory, this really cute guy asked me out on a date when I was a sophomore, and he's sitting in the office over there. We're still married, so that worked out pretty well for me. So
The next panelist want to share?
I can go. My name is Julia Rumsey. I am a current grad student here at BU. I'm in the dual MPA and Student Affairs program. I did my undergrad at SUNY New Paltz and I majored in history. And I also work at SUNY Broome as a staff assistant in the admissions office. And my favorite college memory is, I'm going to steal Dr. Robinson Perez's a similar thing. Last week, I was able to interview one of Dr. Nancy Schlossberg, who is a big theorist for student affairs. And I think that's so far like one of the highlights of my college career and life. So that was pretty exciting.
Is there anyone else who needs to share? Any panelists?
I think I might be the last one since I just came in, so I guess I'll go ahead. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angel Vila. I'm currently a first-year graduate student here. I'm currently in the two-year MBA program here for School of Management. In terms of my position on campus, I'm the new graduate assistant for administration here at the Multicultural Research Center here on campus. And my favorite college memory, I have a lot of great ones, but I think the most exciting one for me was definitely the spring fling concert here on campus. That was about 2 years ago, where I got to see Playboy Cardi perform, and yeah, that was really exciting to say the least. And I lost my voice, so I had a really good time. So yeah, and then in terms of where I did my undergrad, I just completed my 4-year undergrad program here at BU, and I majored in mathematics and natural sciences.
Great, thank you all. It's been nice to see we have a wide range of different perspectives, and we're excited to hear a little bit more about your college journey and advice. So now we're going to jump into a couple questions. The first being, we're going to kind of take you back to high school. And, as a high school student, what characteristics did you consider when you were searching and selecting your undergraduate institution?
Should we go back in the same order?
Whichever you'd like, feel free to just jump in.
Well, for myself, as a high school student and senior, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So, and I didn't even know if college was what I wanted to do. The Upward Bound program pushed me in that direction for sure. And I'm happy they did so, but I visited a number of colleges with Upward Bound. So I saw different campuses, and met different people. And I think the important thing for me was that I felt comfortable in the environment and the people that I was meeting while I was there. So I thought it was really important to visit different places before you made a decision.
I know for myself, coming from a small town, actually Elmira, 56 miles west of here, I was looking for size, and I was looking for size and diversity. So those were determining factors. I wanted to be part of a large campus, but I ended up transferring to a smaller campus because I realized that I needed more interpersonal dynamics, and really, I just needed smaller spaces so I could focus. So I ended up transferring to a smaller campus after 2 years, which seemed to work out well for me. But I enjoyed the large campus experience as well. Of course, majors matter. Travel abroad opportunities matter. And certainly, of course, just the vibe, right? When you go to campus, you want to, connect. You check out the climate, like how does it feel? What's the vibe like? And so that was also important.
I was looking for a place close to home because, well, for one thing, I really like being near my family, but my family had a small greenhouse florist business, and I worked there, and they couldn't spare me right away. So Penn State had little branch campuses everywhere. So I went to one of those till we could kind of plan for, when I could get away more. So they had more help. So it was really the only choice for me.
I wanted to go to a college like I saw in movies. So I ended up going to like a big football college in the South. And then after about 2 weeks of being there, I realized I don't like football. I hate the heat. I get sunburn all year round. And it wasn't academic focused. And my favorite place in the world is a library. So I quickly realized I need to go back to a small liberal arts school that is academically focused and has the resources I need and prioritizes their students, I guess, academic resources rather than athletic resources. So I transferred. So I definitely suggest don't look at what you want in a college, like look at what you know you need and what you used in high school and how like you're going to continue to use those resources if you use them before. So don't do what like the movies do. It's not real.
So for me, it's a lot of characteristics that went into my decision. Like, ironically, I remember when I committed, like when I put Binghamton on my list, Binghamton was actually my 5th choice, and it's crazy that after 4 years, got the degree, and now I'm here doing my master's again. I remember back when I was in high school trying to figure out like what college would be the best fit for me. I factored a lot of things into, just again, in terms of distance. Like for me, I wanted to definitely be close to my family. So I mean, looking at a lot of schools here, like within the state of New York. But at the same time, though, I knew for sure I didn't want to stay like close to NYC, because at the same time, for me, like going into college, I wanted that experience of like, knowing what it's like to be away from my family, but at the same time, whereas like I won't be as far away, whereas if anything were to come up, anything urgent, I could easily just go back home. So I remember for me, in terms of my final 2, I was basically thinking about going either here, Stony Brook, or University of Buffalo. And for me, like in terms of my final 2 choices, it came down to either Stony Brook or Buffalo. No, excuse me, Stony Brook or Binghamton, just because I got in as an EOP student. So another thing, like another characteristic that went into my decision as well was just like which option was cheaper. So for me, it was one of those things where I decided coming to Binghamton would be the best option for me, because like not only will I receive the financial support that I need to excel academically, but also be far enough away from home where I can learn how to grow, not necessarily by myself, but learn how to just basically be independent from my family, while at the same time still being close enough where if I wanted to go home, I can do so.
Great. So after you chose the college that you wanted to attend, can you tell us what it was like making that transition from high school to college?
For me, that transition was made much easier by the EOP program, academically and also socially, because I got to meet people before I started. But also my first semester was academically rough, and I wasn't as prepared or focused as I needed to actually be. So I had to start to lean on the resources that were available to me to start to turn it around. So, socially it was a little better for me at first, but academically was a harder transition. And, most people, especially first gen students, need extra support. And it wasn't until I, realized that I started to do better.
Yeah, I would agree with Joshua too. I had the support of EOP at SUNY Albany, where I started college, to help with the transition. We did at the time, I think 6 to 8 weeks in the summer prior to starting. Wow, right? Your whole summer. So I walked off the graduation platform for high school, and next day I was in a car headed to Albany for the remaining summer for EOP. Yeah, it was good though. I mean, it was a lot of time needed to meet students. I found my roommate there. We're still friends, my suite mates, and also acclimate to the campus environment before the fall started. That was really helpful. When the semester actually started, I think I was challenged the most with the size of the lecture halls and feeling like a number. And then I changed majors a few times too. I went from pre-law to education to psychology to eventually to social work. And so I think it's pretty normal to feel undecided because I wanted to try a lot of different things in college. So if you're undeclared or you're not sure, I encourage students to take different classes, take a dance class, take a art history class, take different classes that you've always been interested in, or you may not know you had an interest in a particular topic. That's the beauty of college, is you get to really kind of dip your finger in different genres and disciplines to explore, but you want to be strategic because you don't want to be in college forever either, because college costs money. But you certainly want to take advantage of the opportunity to explore different areas of interest that might lead you down a path you never thought of. And so I did that my first 2 years, as I explored different courses just to see where I would, trying to figure out where I would land. And I obviously landed in a good place. So take courses, don't be so quick to join a lot of student orgs. I'd say transition gradually into joining organizations, because with organizations come obligations. And as your first year in college, I really think students should kind of focus on getting the lay of the land and acclimate while they're building relationships before they jump into more stress of having demands put on their time outside of coursework. So those are my thoughts.
I found the academics challenging. I did a commuter campus for 2 years, and then I went to Penn State's main campus in my junior year. But I kind of skated through high school, and like I did the bare minimum to get like solid, but not kind of lackluster grades. It just wasn't like, I don't know. It just wasn't important for me like it should have been, but it wasn't. And then when I started college, it like the little light bulb went off. It's like, my parents are paying for this, and I didn't want to let them down. And it was harder. It was harder. And I didn't have, I hadn't learned to study or take notes very well in high school. And I had to learn all that and study skills and all those kinds of things. And the first 2 years, like at the commuter campus, that wasn't too terrible. Like I started getting the hang of that. And, everybody that sort of goes to college, there's, the people that were really doing badly in high school, they're not there anymore. So like the bar was up a little bit, and every year that went by, the bar went up a little bit. And then when I got to main campus, that was kind of the big transition for me, because then I was away from my family and I was terribly homesick, just terribly homesick. And, it was hard, like the amount of studying and effort that it took on top of being sort of homesick for a semester or two. But, I made like friends. I'm still friends, I'm still friends with my college roommate and other people that I met then that were still, lifelong friends, and we helped each other through it. And those connections were really important.
So my first semester of college, like I said before, I knew I was transferring. So I was kind of also going through the transfer process as I was understanding how college worked. And as a first gen student, I remember telling my mom, I want to come back to New York and transfer. And she was like, are you sure you can do that? So I was had no guidance from my family just because they weren't familiar with how college worked. So it was like the first time I really used my sources and like talking to academic advisors and financial aid and figuring out how I could transfer and how that would look and credits and everything like that. So I think that was the first time I realized like what student affairs is, and the people at colleges like are there for you and they want to work with you, and they're not offended if you want to transfer. They want to help the students. So that was like my first memory of utilizing campus resources.
I would say for me, thanks to EOP and just getting the opportunity to basically not only just like get used to like quote unquote living on campus the summer before my first semester. Yeah, the summer like before my first semester there as a freshman, but also just like taking courses throughout that program. Just I feel like it definitely gave me a real expectation. Like it really gave me like a vivid image of like, what I could really expect from Binghamton from a course load perspective. And I feel like it prepared me a lot. But even then, like looking back at my first my first semester at Binghamton when I was an undergrad. It was just one of those things where I guess for me, it took a while to basically like get used to also just being around a bunch of other people as well. Like, you know, like taking courses with other people, just like really just utilizing professors from a perspective, like, you know, like just going to their office hours consistently, things of that nature, like utilizing tutoring. Those are things where my first semester here, I wasn't doing as much as I probably should have, even though I was doing it, but not as much. And where I reflected on that in the second semester, and I ended up using those resources a lot more. So it's one of those things where when you realize how much help you truly have around you on campus, is best to utilize that to the best of your abilities, and it just makes things a lot easier. And I feel like thanks to those resources, my transition from high school was pretty smooth. You know, it could have been better, but at least on my part. But since of the help that I had around me, it definitely made it a lot easier for me.
Thank you. And that's kind of a perfect segue sort of into our next question. You know, I know in terms of the transition from high school to college, academics came up in several of your responses. So we're wondering what resources helped you academically when you were struggling in a class or in an assignment?
I'll speak for myself and my own experience. In college, I really had to meet new friends and peers that were academically focused, and surround myself with people like that, so that I was following that same mindset. I honestly didn't use tutoring myself or anything like that. But I really, I changed my relationships to spend more time with my peers who were, doing the right things academically, and that really helped me.
I think my first year, I fumbled around a lot trying to find the right resources. EOP definitely was certainly a significant help. But like Professor Meriwether said, I needed study skills. And that's something that I couldn't learn in 6 weeks in a summer session. And so study skills are really important. But the best thing that I think I learned how to do was to access office hours offered by the professor and develop relationships with professors, particularly in large lecture classes where you literally were just a number at the time. I think utilizing tools too, like writing tools, books. I mean, now we're in an era of YouTube, you can YouTube anything, but finding tutoring sessions, writing centers seem to help me more as a graduate student. And then I think it's also important to learn what type of learner you are. Sometimes some people are auditory learners, some people are visual learners, some people are experiential learners, or a combination of all three, or tactile. I recognized in graduate school that I'm both auditory and visual. So I began recording lectures, particularly challenging coursework that had a lot of content that I had to remember and recall. I would audio record my lectures, and on my way driving to Syracuse, I would play them back. So I found strategies that I could adapt to based on my learning style. So there's a lot of inventories and assessments that can test your learning style. If you find your career center when you get to campus, find as many tools and resources that you can to figure out the best way to learn and adapt to the college environment. But definitely take advantage of office hours. Developing relationships with faculty members is really important to take you far in your college career.
One resource that really helped me my first year was the writing center. I was a good writer in high school, but the college level is just a bit higher and more is expected of you. And if you have to switch like from MLA to Chicago or something like that, I think you definitely need the help. So that was something that just helped me transition as a scholar, because I just needed someone to say like, hey, just because you were a good writer in high school doesn't mean you are now, and you need to step it up a little bit. So I definitely recommend writing centers.
I was clueless the first semester, but I started as an animal science major, believe it or not, and I took zoology, which was really hard, and there were older students in there, and they formed a study group, and they were talking and like, oh, let's have a study group, and I was like, can I get in on the study group? And that was great, and then I learned the magic of the study group. So that was really cool. Also, I was struggling in my math class. I had algebra. I don't remember which algebra it was, and I was struggling. And I saw a notice on the board that they had tutors available, the math department for free. And so I started going to tutoring for that, and that helped like tremendously. And I had to go talk. I had Spanish, and I had to go talk to the Spanish professor. This like thing was going on with my family, and I had to miss class, and I was terrified to go talk to her. And I just wanted to ask her if I could go to her earlier class instead of the one that I was in. And she was so nice and supportive and like great that it suddenly dawned on me, you can go talk to professors in office hours, and they were nice and not scary. And so I started doing that when I had questions or whatever. And that worked out really good for me. So those were the things that I learned, but it was kind of like trial and error. But a lot of things just kind of fell on, like the study group thing just kind of happened. And I didn't know to look for that. So I felt lucky that I discovered that by sort of accident.
I would say for me, the resources that definitely helped me, when it comes to my academics, for sure, was definitely tutoring. Definitely tutoring. Whether it's like, just tutoring services within EOP, whether it's the tutoring service, like regular tutoring services here on campus. Like one thing I definitely make sure to utilize more was definitely tutoring. And especially with EOP, I remember I literally didn't, like for me, as an EOP student, I literally didn't start using the EOP tutoring. Like, no, I did. I used it, but I didn't use it like to the max. But the only time during my undergrad career where I actually used it to the max was definitely my very last semester, which was last semester, and I ended up recording like the most tutoring hours like throughout the whole semester throughout any EOP student within a program. So for me, it was just one of those things where like I realized like, okay, especially with my major, considering that my undergrad major, math, actual sciences, was one of the hardest things you can major in, like in throughout campus. It made me realize like, okay, in order to really like not only just get by throughout these classes, but also to excel in these classes and thoroughly understand what you're going through, it's important to take that extra step and look at yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, like you need to do this, that, and the third, so that way you can make sure that by the time May comes, you get your degree. So I ended up doing that. And also one thing I definitely utilize a lot too for thinking back to EOP is definitely counseling. So whenever I was lost in terms of classes or like I didn't know what to do about certain class or if I was struggling, because for me, even since high school, I've always been like, I haven't been like the best test taker. So for me, like if I was struggling with a class or I needed advice on like what do I need to do to prepare myself for an exam, I'll go to my counselor and she would basically tell me like, hey, you need to go to tutoring like a month before, 2 weeks before, so you really understand like every single concept, not only just like that's going to be covered on the exam, but also every concept that's going to be covered within the class. So I would like no matter what questions and things of that nature that are thrown at you, like no matter the rank of difficulty that those questions may possess, you'll still be able to like if you prepare yourself well enough, you'll still be able to do fine on any challenge that you have. So yeah, it's just one of those things where you just gotta basically just go above and beyond, just make sure again to utilize resources that you have. So yeah, just definitely use tutoring, definitely go to counseling, and yeah, and also go to office hours too. That's another thing too, where it's like these professors are not as intimidating as they may seem. Like, so even if you just like, even if you're just like looking through the, like you're going through a hallway and it's like, it looks really creepy, and like you find your professor and it's like, it's just you and the professor, like just go, like just face your fears and just go. Cause I'm telling you, it's just gonna help you out so much. Like you don't even know.
So the next question we have for you all is, were you involved in any clubs or organizations throughout your undergraduate years? And if you were, how did they contribute to your college experience?
Yes, I was involved in various multicultural organizations, Black Student Union, La Familia Latina, a, a men's group at my time in Portland was formed by upperclassmen that were heavily involved in multicultural life, called Movement of Values and Excellence. And that group, for me, was very important in helping me like find my own voice and feel confident in myself. I was not very confident or outspoken coming in as a freshman, and those kind of organizations for me showed me that, you know, like your voice matters and you got to speak up for yourself and advocate for yourself. So that helped me a lot. I also was part of club sports, and my major, sport management, had a sport management club as well. That was helpful academically as well as like socially and networking. And it was a pretty competitive environment as well. You didn't want to miss meetings. You wanted to be part of it and noticed and feel like you were doing something. So that drove me to be better academically and take my major more seriously.
In terms of extracurricular activities or orgs, I wasn't involved in a lot of orgs. I was involved probably in one particular one at Albany, which it's called Purple and Gold. It was like an honor committee. I can't remember the name, but I joined it so that I could be involved on campus. And so I was like a campus tour guide, which was really nice. And I was able to host certain events that happen on campus. And then I had to leave, and I regretted having to leave that organization. But one thing that I did that helped me stay focused and take care of my emotional and physical health was I went to the gym. And so physical health was something that I tried to prioritize. I also had to work, so I didn't have a lot of time for extracurricular activities. So I kept a small part-time job, but I tried to certainly hit the gym when I could for physical health reasons and mental health reasons, and then partook in campus activities as I could during my time in college.
I would echo what Dr. Robinson Perez said. I was working the first 2 years, especially. I was working like pretty close to full time, and I didn't really have a lot of time I wasn't even aware. Like I wasn't aware, but when I went to main campus at Penn State, I started to become aware of these things. And there was a Psych-Chi Honor Society, and I thought that might be a way to meet other at that point, I was a psychology major, and I thought it might be a way to meet other psychology majors. So it was like an interview process, and you had to have a certain GPA and all that stuff. And I wasn't like nervous, but I got accepted. And then they had events and things, and some of the events were like applying to grad school. And I was like clueless. My family didn't know anything about that sort of thing. So it was so valuable to me because these other students knew about that stuff, and they had graduate students come talk and professors come talk. And that's how I figured out how to like apply to grad school. I wouldn't have even, and what you needed to be doing to be competitive for grad school. So So that was the only one I actually, that's the only one I joined.
I was in history club when I was an undergrad, and I didn't love history club, but I realized I love student organization and student leadership. And now that I'm in grad school, I'm in the student affairs graduate association, and I was first year rep, and now I'm president. And it's like I realized that's my passion, and I want to work in student leadership. So even if you don't love the club you're in, maybe you'll realize something great about that club or meet someone. So I encourage everyone to try out clubs, like go to the general meetings. You're not committed. Go to certain events they have. I always welcome people to just come to events, even if they aren't part of our group, and they don't have to be members. But I think any engagement is really exciting for people already in the club and for new people, just because you never know who you're going to network with.
Well, for me, it's a combination of both. Like for me, I spent a lot of my undergraduate career working, but at the same time, I did end up on an executive board basically from the spring semester of my junior year all the way up, or like all the way up to all of last year, all of my senior year. I was a secretary for the Men of Color Society, which is an organization here on campus that's basically that we're in terms of the main mission. Our main mission is basically to provide a safe space for men of color on campus, whether it's like to grow professionally, to grow individually, things of that nature. And for our organization specifically, it's really important because one thing I definitely noticed on campus is that like Men of Color is the only organization, like only multicultural organization here on campus that provides that type of safe space specifically for men within that community. So it's one of those things where for me, I remember when I was a freshman, I interned for Men of Color, but basically something happened to a point where like it ended up like the existence of the org ended up like it basically like the org was like stopped functioning for about a year, and then it came back during my junior year, and then I ran for executive board during the spring semester of my junior year, and I got on the executive board. And throughout my time like on that executive board, I met a lot of great student leaders here on campus. Like just got to network with so many different student leaders for like through many different events, whether it's like, you know, basically like doing a fashion show for like for the African student organization here, or whether it's like participating in a pageant for the Latin American Student Union. Like I did all those things and met so many people through those type of events, things of that nature. And it's really cool. Like even though I basically did it throughout the beginning of the pandemic all the way till now, so basically a lot of the work that I did was virtual, but the amount, like again, just the network that I've been able to build, just being on the executive board, like it was pretty cool to see. It's pretty cool to be a part of. And one thing I'll definitely say is like, in terms of joining organizations, is definitely like the thing that I definitely find the most beneficial is again just the amount of people that I've met, and also just how much I've grown as a person in that time. Because like for me, I definitely feel like I've always been that type of person where like I didn't have like the most confidence from my freshman year to now, but like it's like throughout the time that I spent on this university, I've definitely grown from that perspective, and I definitely grown more comfortable just being myself. So that's a really good thing that I'm proud of myself to say that I've been through and that I've grown through that. And something else I'm thinking about, but I forgot about. I think I'll get back to it later. But yeah, overall, it's just like I'm just grateful for the opportunity that I've been able to build. And also now I'm thinking about it, since I'm also the graduate assistant for administration here at the Multicultural Resource Center, which is basically a safe space for all multicultural organizations here on campus, is one of those things where I still give myself an opportunity to meet different sort of leaders and help them out, and just be there for people. So it's a really, really dope experience overall.
Thank you. It seems like, some common themes. Definitely networking was woven through several of the answers, and just, making connections. And then I'd also say I really noticed a lot of you talked about, doing activities that you enjoyed, but then also learning a lot about yourself and exploring interests throughout those organizations, which I think is really cool to hear. The next question we have, we've been talking with our students a lot about time management and, what that looks like at college. So we'd love to hear sort of some strategies or maybe some techniques that you developed throughout your college experience that helped you balance, all of the different responsibilities you've had.
So for me, as a student, I found it helpful to actually have more activities and things to do, like on any given day or week, because it gave me structure, like it gave me things to do, and my time that I needed to use for studying was defined within that schedule and that structure. So I had clubs and activities. I had jobs as well, sometimes sports, and also school, and it kept me very busy. But for me, I needed that because like I said, everything was defined. I knew where I had to be and when, and I knew those breaks and times in my day that I needed to use for studying and schoolwork. And so I think that it's easier to plan your time when you have more things to do and to plan around. It's harder when you don't have anything or much of anything else going on but school, and you always think you have time. You know what I mean? And that's when you tend to waste time. And I do believe, speaking as an EOP counselor and working with students, I believe that just having a schedule and a plan is like super important, and writing it down is the best thing you can do, so you can see it all the time. And using tools like Google Calendar or your phone apps to schedule things and notify you of things. If you depend on your own brain to remember every single thing you have to do and when, you're gonna stress yourself out and you're gonna forget something. So writing it down is the best thing you can do. And again, the way I guess teach students to do that is by creating a schedule with the fixed events of your day or week, which are class, obviously, and then any other obligations you have, work, meetings, fixed events that are scheduled, planned, and set at certain times. So you see where those blocks fit in, and then you start to see where those gaps are. And that's when you start to think about how can I effectively fill in these gaps with, everything else I need to do around school. So it can be intimidating to create a schedule, but if you do it with a plan and are organized about it, then it gets easier and it makes your life so much easier.
Well, Josh just stole my whole speech. So I would echo everything he just said in terms of writing things down and using, I don't know what I would do without my Google Calendar. I love her. So Google Calendar is really important in my life. And other tools and gadgets that I think the younger generation is really good at using, except my 17-year-old sometimes. I try to get him to use his calendar. But I think it's really important. I'm also a list person. So sometimes I like to pull away from technology and just pull out a notebook and make a list. I'm very task oriented. So again, finding out your learning style and how you what do you respond to well? Do you respond to technology and calendars, or do you like list? And if I have a time frame of things that I need to get things done in, I feel joy when I could check off things on my list. So once I get a list going and I start checking the box, I feel really accomplished. So that's really how that's what dictates my life right now, a list. And I've used newspaper prints and whiteboards and all kind of doohickeys to have a visual. Again, I'm a visual learner, so I need to have it in front of me to help me stay organized with my time.
That's pretty much what I would have said too. So I'm a big list person. I was then, I still am now. I would echo the empowerment of crossing something off your list. I have, believe it or not, sparkly gel pens. It makes the list pretty. I grade with those too, by the way. And I really like doing that. When I was a student and even still as an instructor, I always kept my syllabi right handy so I could like keep checking because there were so many of them. Like you might take 4 more courses a semester, and just making sure I was aware of what was coming up. I wrote the syllabi for my classes, and I still do that. Like, oh wait, when is the exam? When is that next paper due? So keeping those handy and reading them was something that I didn't know what syllabi were before college. So we didn't have those in high school back when I was in high school. So those were super handy and helpful in keeping on track.
You stole completely what I was going to say. I literally have my syllabus with my checks on it right here. But I do that too. I use Google Calendars, but having like paper lists and my syllabi printed out makes me feel like safer for some reason. And like crossing off, it is empowering. I don't know why it's so empowering, but like taking it off your list, and it makes me feel better. Also, just like even when I'm overwhelmed, even if it's not something I have to do, writing it down to get it out of my brain, like I can stop thinking about it if it can just set it over here on this piece of paper for now. So yeah, I'm a hard copy person.
As I said in the comment section, the chat section. But I said in the chat section, Google Calendar equals GOAT. Like, because let me tell you, last semester, like literally before last semester, I was the type of person where like, oh yeah, like if I got something, something big, like any big task, I'll keep it in my head. But one thing I realized is like, Google Calendar just makes it 10 times easier when you just like write it down. Like not even just like any big task, but just like write down your daily, like whatever you have to do throughout the day, just write it down Google Calendar. It gives you like, it makes you so much more organized in the sense like, oh, like, okay, like I know what I have to do at this time throughout each different day. And then like, as soon as I get the reminder, even if I forget, because there's times where like, I'll forget I have a big event and then I see the reminder, I'm like, oh, okay, let me just do that, get it over with. And then I do it. And it's just one of those things for me where like, just with anything that I'm doing throughout the day, whether it's like, whether it's school, whether it's like I have to go to the gym, whether it's like, oh, like I have to go play sports somewhere, things of that nature. Like it's helped me so much. It just helped me so much from an organizational perspective, just making sure that, okay, like everything I said I was going to do, I'll get it done at this time, this day, things of that nature. And then as soon as that passes, as soon as that's done, it's like, like I feel that extra sense of relief is like, okay, like I didn't forget a single thing. I did everything I said I was going to do. And then like, now I just can just like actually relax for a little bit before like something else big starts to pop up again. So yeah, and then you just can repeat the whole process. So I feel like it's just really like Google Calendars is really cool to use when you want to basically just know, like just keep track of yourself on a daily basis. So yeah, it's definitely helped me significantly, especially because I got into the habit of it. I got into the habit of doing it last semester, and I haven't looked back since. I've actually, no, I'm lying. I have looked back a little bit just because now, like especially for me as a GA, I'm in charge of my own calendar as well as the calendar of like 10 other people. So sometimes I look at the app, I'm like it's just so much. But now if I've gotten back to the point where it's like, okay, like I'm updating my calendar more, So yeah, it's helped me out a lot. And I have a physical planner as well, but I feel like I haven't used it as much ever since I started using Google Calendar. So Yeah, but if you guys want to combine both, I would definitely recommend that to like using Google Calendar and have your own physical plan just in case you need to write something down.
So lastly, to just wrap up everything we spoke about, we have one last question, which is, what is one piece of advice or tips you would give on being successful in college as a first generation student?
All right. Well, just going back to the last question, I just have to reiterate, like I go on these pretty long rants about like goal setting and to-do lists with my students and tell them how empowering it is to cross things off your list, and it makes you feel better and it makes you want to do more things and accomplish more things. And I feel like they don't believe me, and it's so good to hear other people say the same thing because it's so true. And also another thing, like Google Calendar is great, and I'm like it's on my phone. I got it right there on my homepage. It's on both my computer screens, and I would be lost without it. So those two things are tips to use. Please set goals and have plans for yourself, and know that you're capable of accomplishing things. And when you do that, it definitely empowers you to want to do more. And it's a self-esteem boost. And like I said, it's a great feeling. Also, your resources are your key to success. Nobody does it by themselves. Nobody can and nobody should have to do it by themselves. And if you're not sure where to start when asking for help, I mean, your instructors are like your first line, and they are not as intimidating as you may think. I know, like now during this time, especially just transitioning back into like the physical presence of college from the previous couple of years where everything was virtual. Your email is like super important. You gotta read your emails, and you gotta be able to form well-written emails and clear emails that you can, clearly state or ask what you want, so you get the answers that you need. And use your email to reach out to your instructors or anybody that you may need to connect with on campus, because like I said, those resources and those personal connections are so important. And just the instructor knowing you as a name and a face and not a number will make that class much easier for you. So I'll stop there.
Some final tips that I would give students starting college this year, and I actually have a teenager at home that's going to be starting college this year, so I should record this to replay to him. Is form good relationships from the beginning. Surround yourselves with people that are like-minded. Don't feel the need to conform or have to fit in, because college can feel like there's a lot of pressure. There can be times where it's cliquish, right? And so be yourself, and I say find your tribe, right? Find the folks that are like-minded, goal-oriented, and they can and should look different and sound different and be diverse, because that will open up your world to learning about new people. And so meet different people and new people from different backgrounds. I would also say form good relationships with faculty and staff, because they will be your support system when you're away from your family, and family is really important. And I forgot to mention, I was homesick too, really, for my mom was cooking, but I was homesick. And so having relationships with faculty members that sometimes even would invite their class over for dinner and have a potluck, that was kind of cool. to go to a faculty member's house and they fed us, for class sessions. So, form good relationships, set good boundaries with your peers, make good choices, take care of your body, your mind, and your spirit during your time in college, because college is very demanding. And I think everything else, if you put all those other supports in place, you'll be successful in other venues. And stay focused. Remember why you came to college. The outcome is to complete with your degree. And sometimes students can lose sight of that. That's the ultimate goal, is to complete your higher education experience with a degree.
I would say, don't be afraid to try new things. I started off as I started off in horticulture actually, and then I switched to animal science, and I took psychology to fulfill some gen ed requirement, and I loved it. And so I ended up switching to being a psychology major, and I never would have thought of being that when I got there. So find your passion, and it may be, you may have found it already, and that is awesome, but don't be scared or worried if you haven't yet, because there's so many different things to try out. You'll find it eventually, and you'll know it when you do. But I hope for all of you that you find your passion and that you find happiness through that.
I would say don't spread yourself too thin, especially in the post-COVID world, and we're adjusting back to hybrid or whatever format you're in. Burnout seems so much more prevalent right now, and respect that you have a certain bandwidth. Don't go beyond that. And if you need help, talk to your professors. It's happening to everyone, not just students. And no one wants to see you in a bad spot, and everyone is here to support you. So don't be afraid to reach out if you do need help.
I would say my biggest advice would definitely be, don't be afraid to be yourself. Take risks. And I want to say most importantly, but just one of the most important things is, again, just remember your purpose. Like, if you find yourself in a spot where, you feel like you don't really fit in, things aren't going the way you thought things are going to go, and like you start to question yourself, you start to think like, why am I here in the first place? Just whatever your purpose is, just do your best to stick to that, and just don't give up on your dreams, because there's going to be a lot of things, not just in college, which is life in general, is going to test you. And when I say it's going to test you, it's going to test you to a point where it's like you're going to be at a point where you're going to think to yourself that you should give up. But I'm telling you right now, you guys shouldn't give up on whatever you guys are passionate about. Just keep following your dreams, and most importantly, just know that you have people around you that really care about you. Even during times where like you may feel like you're alone, trust me, you're not alone. Just utilize all the resources that you have, and just make sure to just stay the course. And again, just know that you can do it. Like, no matter what type of adversity you're going through in your life, you can do it. Trust me. So just keep going and just keep the faith.
Thank you. And thank you all. I know, we're a couple minutes past 4:30, but really sincerely, thank you for your time and for so graciously sharing your experiences and advice for our students. It's been a really nice way to wrap up our week-long celebration of first generation student success. And, we couldn't have been more thrilled to have you join us today. So with that, another round of applause and thank you for our panelists. We sincerely appreciate it. We hope you have an amazing, restful weekend and a great holiday season as that is coming up. Just a quick reminder, Upward Bound students, go ahead and stay on for just a minute or two afterwards. We have a couple updates, but other than that, I hope everyone has a nice weekend. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
invite. Have a good weekend.
Thank you all. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone.